There's nothing more fun than having a little hockey talk from Sweden, right? Good morning, everyone. On this episode of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, we're talking about the game in Sweden, Penguins, Predators, NHL Global Series, a season edition of Penguins Postgame, part of Sports for Beginners, Season 4 content, starts right now. Welcome to Sports for Beginners. This is the show where I cover the Pittsburgh Penguins, Toronto Blue Jays, and take you on a journey through the world of sports. From the fans' perspective, here is your host, Scott McGregor. Let's have some fun. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be, Penguins fans, on this Saturday, November 15th, 2025. The NHL Global Series 2025-2026. I'll go with 2025 because that is where this game is. That is when this timeline is happening. All things considered. NHL Global Series 2025 from Sweden is going on, and that is the two-game series set between the Nashville Predators and the Pittsburgh Penguins. In case you may have missed the game, I myself missed the game, but I checked into the highlights after the game. Both of the teams, the Penguins and the Predators, played pretty well, but ultimately it was Steven Stamkos, a former member of the Tampa Bay Lightning, sealing the deal in Game 1 of a 2-1 Predators win over the Penguins in Stockholm. Game 2 goes at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is 3 p.m. in France, and of course in the area we know as Sweden, at which time it would be 4:45 p.m. in Sweden right now. But all things considered, we are hours away from game number 2 of this, as I called it, home and home series between Nashville and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh lost the game. Nashville was the home squad. Now they'll have to pick up a win as the host in the same arena as yesterday afternoon's game, which started at 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. in France and Sweden, 7 p.m. in the UK. And of course, 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific, p.m. Mountain. The game got going 16 minutes after those time slots. And now in about 22 hours and 14 minutes. Make that 22 hours and 12 minutes. It will be go time once again. Pens and the Preds from Stockholm. This is going to be an interesting showdown between the two squads. But game 1, low scoring. And also low penalties, low scoring, low penalties. In any case, we know when these games are going to be happening. That we know for sure. We know when these games are going to be happening. So the question is, can the Penguins bounce back from the loss? I would think they can, but I mean that is the million-dollar question. Like the million-dollar question here is, can they bounce back? I think, to be honest, that is by far the million-dollar question. Can the Penguins find a way to to win that game in Stockholm in about 22 hours and 9 minutes from now? But anyways, can they find a way to flush yesterday's loss against Nashville and bounce back with a big win of their own in Stockholm? All right, this opening segment has gone on long enough. Let's get right down to business here, starting with our records going in, and of course our head coaches, which we'll get to just before we go to the records. Going in to game 1, they are Andrew Burnett and Dan Muse. Andrew, if I pronounce your last name wrong, I apologize. Dan Muse, head coach of the Pittsburgh Penguins. His Penguins come into Stockholm with a record of 9-5-3 going into game 1. Their record right now is 9-5-4 heading into game 2, which is the game the Penguins are the home squad in. The Nashville Predators come into Stockholm at 5-9-4 going into game 1. Coming out of game 1 with the 2-1 victory in overtime. Their record is 6-9-4 heading into game 2 of the 2-game set in Stockholm, Sweden. And with that said, I'm not going to worry too much about our officials for Friday afternoon's game, but I will give you the referees. They were Frederick L. E. I'm going to go with Frederick L. Sorry, Frederick, if I pronounce your last name wrong. I'm going to go with Frederick L. just in case I do pronounce it wrong, but let's try this. Frederick Ellie Kyer. If I pronounce that wrong, I apologize. So I'll go with Frederick L. just for the sake of the pronunciation. He was wearing the number 17, and the number 14 in the pinstripes was Trevor Hanson for this game. Hanson for this game, excuse me. You know what? Why not? Let's reveal our other pinstriped officials. Those wearing the numbers 58 and 88. They are the linesmen or linesperson. The first linesman or linesperson is wearing the number 58. His name is Ryan Gibbons, and wearing the number 88 is Tyson Baker. There you have it. There are your officials. We will break down the game after the first break of the program. But before we do, let's give you a look at our goaltenders for game number 1. Dan Muse going with the combination of Artur Shilovs getting the start, Sergei Marashov in at backup if needed. Meanwhile, on the Nashville Predators side, Andrew B going with number 74, Jussi Saros to get the start, and number 29, Justus Ananu, J.A., I should say. If I pronounced that wrong, I apologize. And I pretty much did. Looking at my notes, I pretty much did, so I apologize in advance. Those numbers are 74 and 29 on the Predator side, and on the Penguin side, 37 and number 1. All right. So it is very quick for us to note that there were no scoring goals in the first period of play. But we'll touch on the shots on goal by period, and we'll touch on all of that jazz leading into penalties. Plus, I want to give you a look at Friday's out-of-town scoreboard heading into today. And even though this is a Penguins post-game edition here on Season 4 of Sports for Beginners, the podcast, which you can catch also available on the ice and behind the benches, I want to let you guys know that we are going to also take a look at some of the PWHL action so far from the preseason. Only 2 teams have played so far. They've been playing each other, and it looks like we had a split between the New York Sirens and the defending Walter Cup champion, Minnesota Frost. Those finals later in the show. When we return to episode 27 of season number 4 here on Sports for Beginners, our hockey talk continues as our Penguins post-game season edition continues. And just quickly checking out here, we are available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify and some other platforms as well. But please be aware, please be aware that we kindly ask for you to like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube to our YouTube channel for weekly in sports as well as many other areas that you can see the pod on. And in case you weren't necessarily paying attention to baseball, but you like baseball, but you're also a fanatic like myself, and this is very true, I am a fanatic. I am a fanatic. This is very true. Hence why I like the Penguins and the Buffalo Bills and the Blue Jays and the Raptors, etc., etc. We want to let you know that, and especially here on episode 27, we want to let you know that it's okay to be that. And of course, the Blue Jays lost the World Series, which is devastating for me, but we know they'll be back next year. Will they win the World Series next year? Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. Anyways, Penguins postgame on episode 27 of season 4 of Sports for Beginners will return in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
CNT Radio will never give you up. They will never let you down, nor will they run around or desert you. So join Nick Astley for The Melting Pot every Saturday on CNT Radio. Hang on a minute. He's not Nick Astley. Oh, jings, I've done it wrong. Anyway, just join Nick for The Melting Pot on CNT Radio.
I wonder if I could make it. It's almost getting to 8 o'clock p.m., and I am still a few more steps away from home to get to my computer to listen to CNT Radio's Cosmopolitan Culture Club. The best of the best music from around the world. Can't wait. I think I made it. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Take another look with Gerda Felix and Melanie Taddeo Malo, two powerful women of diverse backgrounds having genuine, unique, and uncomfortable conversations that everyone needs to have. Join Melanie and Gerda for conversations about what is missing from human connections.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Sports for Beginners. Welcome back, our On the Ice and Behind the Benches listeners as well. And if you are just joining us, welcome in. It is episode 27 of season number 4. It is a Penguins post-game edition. We are talking about the Penguins and the Predators. In case you missed it before the break, starting goaltenders for Game 1 in Stockholm, which started at 2 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Sweden time, and of course that's the same time slot for France, as well as 7 p.m. UK time, 10 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Mountain. Our goaltenders, in case you missed it, Artur Shilovs for the Penguins and for the Predators. Will that be the same matchup in about 21 hours and 39 minutes from now? 29. That's a long time. And that's not even how long it is till game time. It's actually 21 hours and 39 minutes away from now. But then again, it's also not tonight. It happens Sunday morning as one of the many 5 games on Sunday slate. But we'll talk about that later. Want to also remind you, especially for On the Ice and Behind the Benches listeners, when we are coming to the end of our show, and particularly around going around the league to give you a look at the other scores from Friday, we will be giving you an in-depth look at PWHL so far as they enter night one of doubleheader action in the preseason starting tonight, but night three of the preseason no less. The puck drops on season 3 on Friday, November 21st, 2025, when the defending Walter Cup champion Frost face the Toronto Scepters, and we will have it here for you on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, on the return of PWHL recap. But more on that later. Here we go. It's time to get down to business and get down to the game. We'll go by penalties to kick things off because, well, there were penalties called in the first and second period of the game. Nothing called in the third period. Nothing called in overtime. Goals, overtime, second period, and third period. Here is your penalty summary. In the first period, going by team, 1 penalty to a side. The first penalty would go to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sorry, it would actually go to the Nashville Predators. The penalty would go to Luke Evangelista. I'm going to go with Luke E.G. Sorry, Luke, if I pronounce your last name wrong. 2 minutes for interference was the call. Time of the penalty was 6 minutes, 50 seconds. In the period later, with just about 2 minutes left in the period, at 18 minutes and 58 seconds, Christopher Letang would receive the only Penguins penalty of the game, a 2-minute minor for roughing Ozzy Weisblatt, OW. I'm going to go with OW. Ben Kindle also drawing the penalty on Luke G. EG. On Luke EG. To the second period we go. Remember, no penalties called in the regulation time period, and no penalties were even necessary in overtime. Scores happening in the second period, third period, and overtime. We'll get to that momentarily. First, the shots on goal by period. After the first period, still tied at 0. Nobody has scored yet since the first 20 minutes. Shots on goal for the Penguins, 8. For the Predators, also 8. All even at 8 shots on goal apiece. The Predators would ultimately end up outshooting the Penguins 30-17, but we'll get to that over the course of the show. Let's go to the period where the scoring began, but also the penalties ended, and start on the penalty side. Final penalty of the game called in the second period. That went to Predators forward, or he might be a defenseman. Anyways, it was Justin Barron. 2-minute minor to Justin Barron for high sticking. Connor Dewar picking up the draw of that penalty. That came at 5 minutes and 22 seconds. It was an interesting turn of events on the scoring. We begin in period number 2, as after the first 20 minutes of play, we remained scoreless at 0-0. It was at 13 minutes and 49 seconds of the second period, when that had already gone by rather, at the beginning of the period, that Evgeny Malkin scored his 4th goal of the season, career goal number 518 for Evgeny Malkin. So he's on the verge of, maybe it won't happen this year, but it could happen next year, or it might happen this year. We don't know how many times Evgeny Malkin's going to score. Matt Dumba picking up the only assist, his 2nd of the season. Penguins jump ahead 1-0 after 2 periods of play. Shots on goal for the game, heavily favoring the Predators at 12-2. And moving on here, for the game, that meant that the Penguins, after 2 periods of play, who only had 2 shots on goal in that period, they would trail 10-20. So it's a 10-point lead in the shot total for Nashville. Predators outshooting the Penguins 2. They would again outshoot the Penguins 30-17. But we're going to find out how that all happens in just a matter of moments. By the way, 2 shots on goal in overtime, no shots on goal for Pittsburgh, 2 shots on goal for the Predators. So how did they all finish in the third? We're about to find out. After 40 minutes of play, the Penguins have broken the ice on the Evgeny Malkin goal. Goal number 518 of his career, as I saw. Oh, by the way, the goal was a wrist shot from Evgeny Malkin that, if you watched the highlights, you would have heard it deflected in. So the pass came from Matt Dumba. Malkin was looking, I think he was looking to pass, but he took a wrist shot and it deflected off of Saros into the back of the net to give the Penguins the early lead. In the third, Philip Forsberg does it himself, scoring his first goal, should say his 8th goal rather, of the season, which ties this game up. That's at 18 minutes and 50 seconds of the third period. So after 60 minutes of action in Stockholm, we need extra hockey shots on goal for the Penguins and the Predators after 60 minutes of play. Penguins outshot, not really, but they're outshot 8-7, not really being outshot by the Nashville Predators. They were outshot 2-0 in overtime, but that's because they weren't able to get shots on goal. They would finish in regulation with 17 shots on goal. After regulation, before overtime began, the Predators would finish with 28 shots on goal for the game. And ultimately, at the end of the game, with the 2 shots on goal in overtime, ultimately they would finish with a shots on goal tally of 30 for the Predators to the 17 shots on goal for the Penguins. Again, Philip Forsberg tying the game, his 8th goal of the season unassisted in the third period at 18 minutes and 50 seconds. It is in overtime that the former Lightning, Steven Stamkos, blanks Artur Shilov's 44 seconds into overtime for his 4th goal of the season. The assist was picked up by Brady S. 6 assists of the season for Brady S. And the Predators come out with the dub. Now we're going to try something a little bit different here before we get to the stats, which we will take a break and get to momentarily. But let's take a look at our 3 stars of the game. Here we go. From the afternoon game, as by the time our show ends, we will most likely be in the afternoon time slot of the Eastern timeline. But I want to remind everybody here as we continue on that we are now 21 hours and 23 minutes away from Game 2, Predators and the Penguins from Stockholm, I should say. I gotta make sure I'm saying this right, especially for those of our listeners in Sweden, and we welcome you aboard. Your 3 stars, almost a clean sweep for the Predators. Your 3rd star went to Penguins goaltender, number 37, Artur Shilovs. Goals against average of 1.98, save percentage of 933. The 2nd star went to forward of the Nashville Predators, number 9, Philip Forsberg. 1 goal, 1 point, and no assists for the 1st star. A goal and a point, but that went to Predators forward and former Lightning member number 91, Steven Stamkos, who ended overtime 44 seconds in. So not enough time for penalties, not enough time for too many shots on goal in overtime. Of course, overtime or a shootout at this point would have to end the game, especially a game like this one. We're going to take a break. When we come back, final game totals. How did both teams do on the power play and penalty kill? Friday's out-of-town scoreboard. Besides the game in Stockholm, how did day 1 and day 2 go in the PWHL for the Sirens and the Frost? Plus, what else is on tap in the preseason, and of course, the play of the game, the shake of the game, which is our player of the game segment, and of course, game puck of the game as well, coming up still to come on this Penguins post-game show edition on Sports for Beginners, episode 27, season number 4. When we return, final game totals besides shots on goal, Friday out-of-town scoreboard, a look at day 2 and day 1 of the 2025-2026 PWHL preseason, and the play of the game. All of that coming up next. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
What a busy traffic on this Friday evening. I am almost stuck in this traffic for the last 40 minutes. And there is no way, I think, for me to get to the show. The CNT Radio Song Bank, which is going to start very shortly. It's one of my favorite shows. And my, what a way to wind down for the weekend. Perfect 2 hours of fun-filled music. And she has so many great features. Sound of Music, Undercover, Foreign Exchange. Name That Tune. And the big wheel that she spins. For Who's That? Or Where Are We? We cannot forget about the international stage. I have never come across such a great show in my life. I think I will have to press hard on my accelerator and go as fast as I can to get home in time. Wow! Wow! Look! I made it! I am almost there! CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time.
Hockey has changed. And guess what? Our coverage hasn't really changed, but we're not just covering the men's side of hockey now. We're also covering the women's game. Join us after select games on Sports for Beginners and also on the ice and behind the benches with Scott and Thomas on the separate platforms, breaking down select games this PWHL season, including games that will include the so important expansion clubs from Seattle and Vancouver, the Torrent and the Golden Eyes. Can the Minnesota Frost go 3 seasons in a row with a Walter Cup to their name? Will we have a new champion this season? All answers will be revealed on a brand new season in bonus content of PWHL Recap. You won't want to miss it. See you there. And always remember, ice time earned.
Looking for conversations on books and more, as well as tutorials on using your favorite devices and applications? You've come to the right place. Join us weekly on Spicy Techie, where Ali and Sienna provide insightful conversations, as well as useful tips and tricks to help you along on your technological journey. To learn more, tune into the show and like the Spicy Techie Facebook page. Search for Spicy Techie.
Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
We welcome you back to Sports for Beginners, episode 27 of season 4, another Penguins post-game show edition. Penguins and the Predators, the topic of conversation. When we last left you, we talked about both teams gearing up for game number 2, set to begin now in about 19 hours and 59 minutes. Of course, still not today, obviously. But we also broke down the game. We've talked about coaching, referees, linesmen, rather. We also have talked about the scoring, which you can see on your screen right now. We talked about penalties, coaching, guys between the pipes, and we also went over the shots on goal by period. Final score 2-1 in overtime for the afternoon showdown between the Penguins and the Predators. Before we go any further, I would just like to make a quick announcement, as I'll stop the share for a second. It has come to my attention that most of the music I've been using from Purple Planet or anywhere else have changed their rights holders. Please know that if we have to go on our show without any music, we will do so. It's not going to sound as familiar to you as it did before. And also, if I have to, for the Weekly in Sports podcast, use our opening music that we used on Sports for Beginners for its opening music and closing music, called Open Road, I will, if I have to. Only if I have to. I understand how important copyright is, and that is why I really try to be as careful as possible. And if both podcasts have to go without music, then I will not hesitate to make good on that promise. So if any copyright happens or anything comes up as an error, I will not hesitate to take action and make necessary adjustments. With that being said, I will always make sure to credit whoever I am using content of, if it is not mine, either on the show or perhaps in my description, which will be a daily occurrence in a couple episodes for anything that comes up. All right, let's get back to the topic at hand and the game at hand, because we got to get ready for this game. Same two squads. This time it'll be on the ice and behind the benches, but same two squads. We talked about the shots on goal, Penguins getting outshot 30-17. The only thing we didn't do was talk about the other stats. So here we go. And I'll even open up the Penguins account. Credit to the Penguins and their X account, or rather, as I still call it, Twitter. Lately, I'm now calling it X. But anyways, moving on. In a game that saw 54 faceoffs, as I can see here, it says here on the Penguins post that it was 50%, 50%. But according to NHL.com, just about 52% good in the faceoff dot for the Nashville Predators. They win 28 of the 54 faceoffs. 26 of the 54 faceoffs were won by the Penguins, winning about 48.1% of those. The penalty kills shined, with the Predators going 2 for 2 on the PK, and the Penguins going 1 for 1 on the penalty kill. Meanwhile, the power plays were non-existent. Penguins 0 for 2, Predators 0 for 1. 4 minutes in the box for the Predators, 2 minutes for the Penguins, 17 total hits for the Predators, 10 total hits for the Penguins, 14 blocked shots for the Penguins, 7 blocked shots for the Predators in this one. Predators had 3 takeaways at the end of the game. Penguins with 7 giveaways, 21 for the Predators and 13 for the Penguins. As I mentioned, this series will wrap up in Stockholm, as the Penguins battle the Predators this time as the home squad at about 19 hours and 51 minutes. It is about 1:08 p.m. Eastern as we speak. Game time of game number 2 as we await to find out who will be in goal for the Predators and in goal for the Penguins in game number 2 of the NHL 2025 Global Series. We know the Preds lead the season series 1-0. They can win and clean sweep the Penguins if they win tomorrow morning at a.m. Eastern, a.m. Central, 3 p.m. Sweden and UK time, and of course, 7 time, 2 p.m. in the UK, and a.m. Pacific is the timeline of tomorrow's game 2. The records, in case you missed it, coming into this matchup in game number 2, in case you missed it, the Penguins are now 9-5-4, and the Nashville Predators are 6-9-4. Coming into game 2, that is the record. The record will change coming out of game 2, but coming in 9-5-4 and 6-9-4. Penguins and Predators records as they enter game number 2 tomorrow morning on the East Coast. And with that said, 3 stars have already gotten out of the way. So while we remain in a shared screen, we're going to bring up the out-of-town scoreboard for Friday, November 14th, 2025. That is the out-of-town scoreboard for when Game 1 of the NHL Global Series took place. And only 2 more games go the distance into overtime. The Carolina Hurricanes knock off the Vancouver Canucks in overtime. 6-5 the final in St. Louis between the Blues and the Flyers. Flyers winning that one 6-5. And the Utah Mammoth hosted the New York Islanders. They fell in overtime. The Mammoth did, that is. The Mammoth fall 3-2 in overtime. Okay. Before we go to the play of the game, let's take a look at the action from day 1 and day 2 of the PWHL. They are currently in the season that does not matter, but as Thomas and myself have mentioned on our podcast before, if you're a die-hard sports fan, technically every season does matter. So here we go. Minnesota with the opening win on Thursday, November 13th, 5 over the New York Sirens. But the Frost fall 6-2 in Friday's matchup. Still to come on the matchup, we have 2 games tonight. Both are in the nighttime. On the East Coast, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern, it is the Boston Fleet and the Montreal Victoire, first of 2 of the preseason between the 2 teams. At the Verdun Auditorium in Montreal, they will play game 2 on November 17th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. It's the Torrent and the Golden Eyes playing their first matchup of 2, which will wrap up on Sunday, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, 7 Central. But first, the Golden Eyes will host the Seattle Torrent at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Sunday, the afternoon kicks off with TD Place, Battle of Ontario, Toronto and Ottawa, the Charge and the Scepters. Puck drops at 1 p.m. Eastern. Game 2 goes Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern from TD Place. Game 2 of Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver goes at 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. And with that, we come now to our play of the game. And then after we take a break, it's time to get raring to go for Penguins Predators Game 2 from the Global Series in Stockholm, Sweden. Before we get there, we'll get to the game puck of the game. And our player of the game segment we call the Shake of the Game. All of that still to come. But before we go to break, it is time for the play of the game. On the Penguins Radio Network, the 3 stars are brought to you by its respective sponsor. And of course, the same thing can be said for the play of the game. Play of the game belongs to Steven Stamkos. Knew he had a job to do, and well, let's face it, although we have an off day today, we're right back at it tomorrow morning. Well, tomorrow afternoon down in Stockholm, but here on the East Coast tomorrow morning. Yeah, note the start time for those of us in the East time zone here in North America. 9 a.m. is the start time of puck drop. The puck drops at 9 a.m. Here are the men who called it. All credit to those calling the game on the respective stations, and all credit to the teams and the NHL for all this audio as we try to get it up here. So barring an ad here, we will get you the men on the call. And for this play of the game, we take you to the Nashville Predator broadcast on FanDuel Sports Network. By the way, the FanDuel Sports app is your home for live sports betting in the United States. There are some areas in Canada, but of course, I could go on, but then I would be doing a promotion, and I don't have that kind of power. So here we go with our play of the game. Stamkos streaks in on the rush and beats Artur Shilovs with a heavy shot off the crossbar, winning Game 1 of the Global Series in overtime for the Preds. Enjoy. This is good enough for my play of the game.
Boy, that was behind Saul's. Now Stamkos has a line to the net.
Yes, sir, indeed. Now, there's a little bit more to the video here, but I'll leave it at that because we entered a pause. Oh, there we go. Now we're back. Let's see if we're going to be able to get through the entire thing. You know what? Just for fun, let's rewind and go back to see it all again. Let's rewind and go back just for fun. Let's wait for it. Wait for it. Again, if you missed it earlier, 2 games.
Jay!
So we did go into now a pause again. But you know what? That's okay. As I was saying, in case you missed it earlier for the PWHL, 2 games on the slate today as they do day 3 of action. But for the WHL, it is for the Torrent, Golden Eyes, Fleet, and Victoire, day 1 of action. Day 2 for the Golden Eyes and the Torrent happens on day 1 for the Scepters and the Charge. And then the Scepters, Charge, and the Victoire and the Fleet wrap up the preseason schedule with their second day of action. Game time for tonight's games on the Saturday slate, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain for Fleet versus Victoire, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern for Golden Eyes and Torrent. Those are the games on today's Saturday slate. Sunday slate, Scepters and Charge in the afternoon, Scepters and the Charge in the afternoon, followed later in the evening by Torrent and Golden Eyes. All right, let's keep this going for the play of the game. We've been interrupted twice. Let's see if we can get through it all. This is the play of the game, as I mentioned, which on the Penguins Radio Network is brought to you by its esteemed sponsor that I normally would say, but we're not going to go for that. Here we go.
Exhilarating turnaround. What an incredible finish here. And look, so close.
This was an incredible finisher. I agree. A nice little turnaround here, as you can see on the freeze screen here as it's loading. Predators do get the puck right back, and then they go down the ice. Puck goes to Stamkos, and he puts it behind Shilovs to end the game. What we're going to do I will provide the link to the highlights, and you can skip right to our play of the game in overtime if you want to check it out for yourself. My play of the game goes to Steven Stamkos, ending the game in Stockholm in extra hockey time. I should say in OT, rather, and the Predators take 1-0 lead in the season series, which continues tomorrow and wraps up tomorrow. Will we see Saros versus Shilovs? Will we see Saros versus Sergei Marashov? Will we see Sergei Marashov versus the Predators backup goalie? We don't know. One thing we do know is that the game itself is now 19 hours and 31 minutes away from dropping the puck. We're going to take a timeout. When we continue on Penguins post-game, we wrap it up. Game, puck of the game, shake of the game, getting ready for the Penguins and the Preds in Game 2 of the NHL Global Series, plus what happens after that. You'll find out all those answers when we return. Don't go anywhere. There's more great conversations and content right around the corner. Sports for Beginners will be right back in a moment.
Hi, Scott. It's Ali here. I just wanted to mention that I'm really enjoying the show and I'm really enjoying what you're putting together. And I wanted to just say I'm enjoying being a part of it as well. So please keep up the phenomenal work and make sure you guys keep this podcast going because it really suits you well. Hello? How are you, my friend? Why? What's the matter? Why feeling bored and lonely? Look at me. I am always happy. The only reason I can tell you it's because I listen to CNT Radio. All the best shows you can think of. The Melting Pot, the Cosmopolitan Culture Club, and the Song Bank. There are also many more new shows to come. Please make sure to visit her website at http://sienna-wordpress.com/sienna-radio. Oh, now I can hear you more cheerful. CNT Radio, making your day brighter, one song at a time. Now, let's take you back to the action. To the rink and field we go. We find Scott McGregor.
And we welcome everyone back to episode 27, Season 4, Sports for Beginners, the podcast. My name is Scott McGregor. This is Penguins Postgame, a Penguins hockey edition of our seasoned content. The NHL Global Series is what we are talking about. Penguins and the Predators. Want to remind everybody that on our next episode of Penguins Postgame, we continue talking Penguins and Predators as the NHL Global Series comes to an end. And speaking of coming to an end, that action begins in now 18 hours and 50 minutes from now. Game time on the Eastern side is at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Mountain, and of course, yes, of course, 2 p.m. in the UK and 8 p.m. from France and also Sweden in Stockholm. Officials that were in Friday's game, including the referees and linesmen or lines person, have yet to be decided. They could be the same as our goaltending matchup could be the same, or it could be different. In case you missed our final score of this game, game 1, was indeed 2-1 in favor of the Predators. And just under a few hours from now, first game on the PWHL schedule will begin for day 3 of the PWHL Paris season. Reminder of the action on tap. The expansion clubs Seattle and Vancouver will take to the ice at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain, and coming up in just under 3 hours from now, actually 2 hours from now to be exact, because it is 2 p.m. as we continue to speak with you here on the East Coast, you will have at 6 Central, 4 Pacific, 8 p.m. Mountain, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Mountain. You will have the Boston Fleet and the Montreal Victoire taking the ice. Sunday, it's the Golden Eyes and the Torrent again, but in the evening slate. In the afternoon slate, it's the Charge and Scepters. Scepters and Charge continue action on Monday afternoon, and the Fleet and the Victoire are also back in action. The Victoire, I should say, are also back in action. And then off to the season we go. Can you believe the season starts next week? That's right, my friends. Next Saturday, I should say. I was going to say a week from this Saturday, which today, but I should say next week, next Saturday, and next Friday, the real fun begins. All right. I also want to take an opportunity to get you into some Saturday action coming up on our show for this Saturday. 2 games of which start in just under 2 hours to an hour from now. But before we get there, let's get to the shake of the game, followed immediately by the game puck of the game. We are not going to go ahead and share the screen, but that's okay. The story behind the player of the game segment we call the shake of the game comes because of the inspiration from the Milkshake Factory ad created first by former Penguin, now Tampa Bay Lightning, or wherever he is right now, Jake Gensel, where, if you remember, Penguin fans, when Jake was a Penguin, every time he scored, you scored half off Jake Shakes next day at the Milkshake Factory in Pittsburgh. That promotion is still going on at the Milkshake Factory, but this time it's being run by the one, the only Brian Rust. And speaking of Rusty, now whenever he scores, Penguins fans in Pittsburgh score next day at the Milkshake Factory in Pittsburgh, half off Rusty Shakes. Pretty good deal, especially if you score a free Big Mac with purchase at any participating McDonald's in Pittsburgh if the Penguins scored during the Big Mac attack. But I'll let Staggy, Mets, and everybody else involved with Pittsburgh let you know how that all works. Let's get to who is going to get that today. Who is it gonna be? For the Pittsburgh Penguins, the game puck of the game is going to go to Penguins goal scorer Evgeny Malkin. Scored goal 518 in his career, and as we remember, just his 4th goal of the season, as Evgeny Malkin hasn't scored too many goals this season. Matt Dumba picked up the assist. You know what else he picks up? Although I would love to give it to Artur Shilovs, I'm going to go ahead and give it to Dumba. Really like what I saw from Matt Dumba. There were a couple of questionable plays that I saw from Dumba, but I did like what I saw. So Malkin and Dumba with game puck and shake of the game recipients for the Pittsburgh Penguins. For the Nashville Predators, the game puck of the game is going to go to goaltender UC. Had a pretty good day. Played at least 60 minutes and 37 seconds. No goaltender in this game gave up a goal on the power play because the power play wasn't able to score, which is why the penalty kill for Pittsburgh and Nashville each were perfect. Penguins 1 for 1, Nashville 2 for 2. Saros, meanwhile, although he does give up a goal at even strength, the only goal he gave up, which went to Evgeny Malkin, of the 17 shots he would face against Pittsburgh, he picks up 16 saves, which make it good enough for me to give him, even though he didn't face more shots, but he ultimately could have, it gives me great pleasure to give him the game puck of the game. The shake of the game, that is going to go to the former Lightning player, Steven Stamkos. Gets the goal that ends the game and also wins Nashville the first game of the 2-game set, which takes place this year, not in Pittsburgh, not in Nashville, but in Sweden. Artur Shilov's 30 shots against, 28 saves, 2 goals given up at even strength. Still played relatively well. Save percentage of .933. Time on the ice of 60 minutes and 44 seconds. So, will we see this kind of matchup again? Well, we know we're going to see the teams again, but will we see Saros and Shilovs back in between the pipes Sunday morning? I don't think so. I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, it's possible, but I think we're going to see the backup for the Predators, J.A., go against Sergei Marashov, because why not? Oh, by the way, some big news that broke from Friday. Yeah, I know he's not a Penguins player. I know he's not I know he's not a I know he's not, a Maple Leaf player or whatever, but the rookie on the New York Islanders making some history in last night's 3-2 win over the Mammoth in overtime. The rookie, Matthew Schaefer, scores in overtime. And here's a little bit of that from Matt Comba, from Matt Coma of NHL.com independent correspondent in Salt Lake City. Matthew Schaefer scored at 2 minutes and 6 seconds of overtime, and the New York Islanders defeated the Utah Mammoth 3-2 at Delta Center on Friday. Schaefer ripped a one-timer from the right face-off circle off a short pass from Matthew Barzal, going short side past Karel Vejmelka. Schaefer said post-game, I think that the second and third periods, we wanted to come out hard. We got a great balance there to tie us up. And then we fought hard, and then Barzal found me. It was a great game and a really hard-fought win. With his first overtime goal coming in his 18th game, the number 1 pick of the 2025 NHL draft has become the youngest player in NHL history to score an overtime goal, 18 years old, and only 70 days it took him to do that. So Matthew Schaefer, you're an 18-year-old and you're playing in the NHL. In 70 days, you beat Sidney Crosby's record. 18 years, 101 days. Crosby didn't become the youngest player in NHL history to score an overtime winning goal for 101 days at age 18. Schaefer did it in 18 years and just 70 days. By the way, that happened for Crosby on November the 16th of 2005. I was 5 years old when that happened. This podcast didn't even exist at that point in time. Schaefer also leads, guess what? He also leads all defensemen in goals with 7. He added in comment, it's awesome. You want to win games. And I think that was a hard-fought game. I don't think we brought our best, but to get that win is huge to keep going on this road trip. Yeah, that is. So that was some big news as terms as milestones. And we have some big news from Chris Johnson, according to my brother, Thomas McGregor, host of Penguins pre-show, which will be pre-recorded and getting us ready for the post-game show that I will bring to you on the Ice and Behind the Benches right after Game 2 regarding the Maple Leafs. But hold on, is it accurate? We don't know. But Chris Johnson says the Leafs have claimed Troy Stecher off waivers from Edmonton. So whether or not this is true or not, we will wait on that. Chris Johnston with the report. Is it true? Remains to be seen. Speaking of the Toronto Maple Leafs, though, they are in action tonight. And this is where we will drop the show. But I want to make sure we also get to our next 5 for the Predators and next 5 for the Penguins. Of course, tomorrow, within 18 hours and 30 minutes from now, they will be taking on, excuse that alarm there, they will be taking on each other one last time from Stockholm, Sweden. Game time, in case you missed it, for Game 2, they dropped the puck about 9 Eastern. So in case you missed that, that is 9 a.m. Eastern when they will be dropping the puck, among some other games out of the 5-game slate, including a game at 5 p.m. between the Vancouver Canucks and the Tampa Bay Lightning. They also have on the slate the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Minnesota Wild at 7 p.m. and at 9 p.m. At 9 p.m. it's the Islanders and the Avalanche, but at 7, the Rangers will host the Red Wings. So that is the Sunday schedule, and those are the games we'll be keeping an eye on over the course of the day. Tonight, in the NHL, starting at about 5 p.m. Eastern, it's the Tampa Bay Lightning against the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. That gets going momentarily as the Lightning and the Panthers go head-to-head. Coming up at 6 p.m. Eastern, it's the Ducks in Minnesota taking on the 7-4 Minnesota Wild and the Anaheim Ducks 11-5-1. Hockey Night in Canada kicks off with a bang and a bunch of 7 o'clock games included in that slate, including the Boston Bruins 11-8-0 against the Ottawa Senators in action as well at 9-5-4 against the 9-5-4 Los Angeles Kings. Those games at 7 p.m. Eastern. Jake Gensel's game is at 5. Cutter Gauthier and Kirill Kaprizov going at 6 p.m. Devils Capitals at 7 p.m. Eastern. Same thing for the Red Wings and Sabres. Sabres 5-8-4. Red Wings 10-7-0. Devils 12-4-1. Capitals 8-8-1. So basically that's Ovechkin, and Sergei Marashov when it comes to the numbers. Ovechkin, and Marashov in numbers for the Caps. For the Oilers, also playing at 7 o'clock tonight, they will take on the 12-5-0 Carolina Hurricanes. Edmonton's record going in 8-7-4. Speaking of that, the Rangers are on the road taking on the 9-7-1 Columbus Blue Jackets, and they are 9-7-2. I should say the Rangers, that is. Hockey action in the 6th heads for Chicago as the Windy City plays hosts of the 8-8-2 Toronto Maple Leafs on Hockey Night in Canada, and that is the 8-5-4 Blackhawks who will be the hosts. Toronto is 8-8-2. Over in the 8 o'clock window, the 8 p.m. with the Philadelphia Flyers 9-5-3 will take on the 11-4-3 Dallas Stars. Speaking of the Vegas Golden Knights, as we did speak about them earlier, they will take on the 6-8-4 St. Louis Blues. going into that game with a record for the Golden Knights of 7-4-5. So that record against the Wild will either be 7-5-5, 8-4-5. We will see. It could very well be 7-4-6 going into the game against the Wild for the Golden Knight. The main event on Hockey Night in Canada is an all-Canadian clash, which you can catch on City TV as well as Sportsnet and Hockey Night in Canada. It's Kyle Connor versus Blake Coleman as the 5-12-2 Flames host the 10-7-0 Jets. Not the New York Jets, just to be clear, the Winnipeg Jets. And also at 10 p.m. Eastern, because that's when the Jets and Flames play, catch Sharks Kraken from Seattle, Washington at Climate Pledge Arena. The 8-4-5 Seattle Kraken take on the 8-7-3 San Jose Sharks. And that is your Saturday slate, which also brings this show and this episode of Sports for Beginners is season number 4. Despite how many episodes we have a season, we try to make sure that a lot of our shows don't be or are not flagged for any reason. So like I said before when I addressed that earlier on in our recap, if they are flagged for whatever reason, we will not hesitate to go without music for all of our shows going forward. We will not hesitate. As for the news broke by Chris Johnston and from my brother Thomas, host of Penguins Pre-Show, a Penguins hockey pregame show that will be pre-recorded and get us ready for the second game of this global series. I have actually now decided that we're going to look at the next 5 games for Pittsburgh and for the Nashville Predators. We'll look at those after this global series wraps up, but I will say this. Losing 2-1, I think the Penguins are going to want to try and win in a better, big, competitive game against the Preds, and I have no doubt it's the same for the Predators in Sweden tomorrow morning, and we will talk to you on a special Double Trouble. That's right, I'll be doing an On the Ice and Behind the Benches show, followed by a Penguins show. The Double Trouble is actually a triple trouble. Why? Because guess what? Penguins, Predators, both games will be available right here on Sports for Beginners, the podcast, and on the Ice and Behind the Benches, along with Bills postgame, Bills and the Buccaneers, the other game I will be doing after the Penguins and Predators from the Global Series, and right in front of it all, before we get to Penguins and Predators, it is Dolphins postgame from Madrid, Dolphins, Commanders. Note the start time, 30 minutes after the Pens take on the Predators in Stockholm. That's 9:30 a.m. Eastern time for Dolphins versus Commanders. And also, that would mean that it's 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. Central time. 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, 8:30 a.m. Central time, 7:30 a.m. Mountain time, 6 Central. Nope, not Central. Pacific time. There we go. That makes it more sense. There we go. And of course, in France, Sweden, and of course, the UK, that would be 2 p.m. UK time, 2:30 p.m. I should say in the UK time for the football game, 3:30 p.m. France and Sweden. As for the timeline of the Penguins, game time is at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific, 7 a.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. in the UK, 3 p.m. in France, and 3 p.m. in Sweden. Enjoy the action, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the global series. Pens and the Preds continues tomorrow morning. We'll wrap it all up for you on the next episode of Penguins Postgame. But before we go, for those of us catching just the content on Sports for Beginners, that is episode-wise, tune in this coming Friday, November 21st, 2025, for PWHL Kickoff, a little pregame show before the puck drops on the regular season. We'll touch on in the first 2 segments of the show, meeting the new teams, the Seattle Torrent and the Vancouver Golden Eyes, plus a look at the game schedule right up till puck drop. We'll take a look at who's behind the scenes for the Golden Eyes and the Torrent, who the head coaches are, etc., as well as provide you with, at the end of the episode, as it kickstarts a series of episodes, all part of season 4, we'll provide you a pick for the week of opening weekend with the 2 teams, or 3 teams rather, we believe can come out with a victory on opening weekend. So don't miss it. Make sure that you're subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Penguin fans, I will talk to you on the other side, on the ice and behind the benches. But for now, as we constantly await Penguins hockey tomorrow morning, I invite you to enjoy a night of hockey on a Saturday night. And as always, let's go Pens. Penguins fall 2-1 in Game 1 of the series in Stockholm. Can the Penguins win Game 2 in Stockholm, or will the Predators clean sweep them with another Preds victory? We'll know in due time. We are about 18 hours and 11 minutes away from puck drop, so we've still got lots of time. But for now, that is it for this one. So as the great Mike Lang would say, I do it regardless of a win or a loss. And of course, we do know that Justin Brazeau is out of the Penguins lineup. So when will he be back remains to be seen. And on another episode of our show, we will reveal to you the starting goalies and everything else that we did on the last episode of Sports for Beginners, the podcast. The next Penguins post-game show on season number 4 of Sports for Beginners will be on the night the Penguins are in Columbus when they head for Columbus to take on the Blue Jackets. So that is the next episode of Sports for Beginners, the podcast for Penguins post-game. But our Penguins post-game hockey coverage on the ice and behind the benches continues. And even if we don't cover a whole 82 games or 84 or 83 or however many games it is this season, next season, and what have you, we'll try to cover as many games as we can. And I want to take this opportunity also to wish my fellow Spirit baseball member of my old high school, Matthew Wilkie. He and I have been in conversation, but I want to take this opportunity to give him a shout out and wish him a happy birthday. Hopefully you're enjoying yourself, my friend. Then we will see what we get in hockey tonight. Penguins and Preds. Next time on Penguins postgame as it continues from Stockholm, we get one more matchup in Sweden. For Sports for Beginners, the coverage of Penguins hockey continues, but is off for a little bit on the season side until the Penguins battle the Columbus Blue Jackets. And because it is Black Friday, we won't have it right after the game. We'll have it the day after the game and after a prior commitment that I have on that. Oh, actually, wait, it's a Friday. So we might have a little bit of a Black Friday show for you when the Penguins are in Columbus. We might. Oh, by the way, that's a back-to-back, which means the Penguins will be home against the Toronto Maple Leafs right after that. But first, 3 home games against Minnesota, Seattle, and Buffalo. And even more, but first, you gotta go to tomorrow morning in Pittsburgh or wherever you may be. And depending on what time it is, it will be 3 p.m. in France and, of course, in Sweden. But it's 9 a.m. Penguins and the Predators. NHL Global Series continues, and our coverage of that continues on the ice and behind the benches. Ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. To honor the great Mike Lang, I had my own little spin, but until Justin Brazeau returns to the lineup, I will be using Mike's line as my go-to line, and we will wait and see how long it takes Justin Brazeau to get back into the league. I should say get back into the game, but it does not look like he will play in any of the games in Sweden. Will he play the rest of the season? Well, that remains to be seen. But we do know, however many games he misses, whenever he returns, so does my spin on, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis has just left the building. All right, that is it. We'll see you after the next game of the Global Series. Enjoy yourselves today. And remember, if you're a Penguins fan and any other fan in between, but Penguins on the hockey side, you get a big one on Sunday. Pens and Preds. 6-9 and 4 Preds versus the 9-5-4 Penguins next time on our On the Ice and Behind the Benches coverage of Penguins postgame. Let's go Pens! See you then. Thank you so much for listening to Sports for Beginners. If you would like to learn more about the show, you can visit the podcast Facebook page or visit the official website. You can also send us an email at sportsforbeginnerspodcast8231@gmail.com. As we always remind you, it is not goodbye, it is until next time.